Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 27 of the Current Review podcast. Today, we have on a super exciting guest. His name is Jason Fenske, and he runs the YouTube channel Engineering Explained, which I truly think is one of the most informative YouTube channels out there, especially on EVs, automotive, engineering, and everything else. And Jason did his undergrad in mechanical engineering at NC State, so a fellow North Carolinian here, which is really exciting to discuss. And just amazing
We're
YouTube
not
channel.
even in the NCAA tournament this year because it was all seniors last year. They did a great Final Four. Now we're not even in it. That's our downfall. It's been swift.
Dang. Well, neither is Clemson either. So I guess we're both in it together. So that's a little disappointing, but I guess moving on from that and just kind of discussing your history in the automotive space. So what inspired you to start the Engineering Explained YouTube channel? Because you started that in college.
Yep, I did start in college. Also, that was a very kind introduction. Thank you for saying that you find it is very educational. That's certainly been the goal, is to just try and kind of, cars are very intimidating, and I think there's a lot of there's a lot of information out there, but not all of it is concise. And I try my best to keep it factual and concise and like actually teach how things work and try to make cars less intimidating. So it's nice to hear that that resonates with some. As far as what got me to start it, it was mostly because I wanted a job. I was in college when I started it, summer before my senior year, and I just wanted something that I could put on a resume besides my internship because that was all I had. I had one internship and like decent grades, and it's like, okay, well, who cares? Like, that's not enough. So I needed something to kind of help differentiate. And so I thought, okay, if I like create this YouTube channel, I already liked filming, editing, that kind of thing. If I create this YouTube channel teaching about engineering, perhaps it will show that, I'm passionate about this. I spend my free time doing it and help me get a job. And it did ultimately help me get my first job. And it was great for interviews because like, I think the goal of an interview is to derail the conversation from like, these like very set, rigid questions that are like, tell us 3 times you blah, blah, blah. And instead just like have a conversation. And once you become friends with that person, like you're in. And so YouTube then again was like so new and it was just like a fun conversation piece. And I think it was really helpful in interviewing.
That's really cool. And that's an interesting thing too, at least for your position, because like a lot of like you kind of like touch on the three things. So like being able to talk with people, that's one of them. Second one is having the technical expertise to back up if you make a statement and just kind of like dive into that stuff. And then the third one's also like that creativity to run and think of ideas to like make a YouTube channel for. And I think you're one of the few people who kind of like touches on those three things because at least just being in engineering, it's like a lot of people either have like one or two, and it's very hard to find like the person with three of them. And
But
well, and it's interesting.
perhaps, well, I'm just going to say, perhaps I'm lacking in that engineering one. Hence, I am where I am. Like they say, those who can't do teach, or something along those lines. But I think not being great at communicating is often a feature of many engineers out there.
Yes.
So yeah, I think the fact that I knew how to talk in like a simple language that others could understand, perhaps solely because my vocabulary is poor, but regardless, it works. Like people can understand what I'm saying.
I mean, engineers work in teams, right? Even the best engineers need to work in teams. And obviously in a car, you've got systems and systems and systems. So you've
It's
got
quite complex.
engineering teams for each. So I've really appreciated your videos. And, like I was mentioning to you before we got on this podcast, I got introduced to you from some of your EV related videos, particularly the one where you break down are EVs worse for the environment than ICE cars. And I think you do a great job bringing data to a topic where, right now in a day of a lot of misinformation, you just kind of break it
Yeah.
down very logically on sound numbers, which I think is really, really important. So, I mean, I'd love to hear what like, so from this journey of like from college, right, to like working in the automotive space and now just like kind of doing YouTube videos full time, what drew you into EVs? And like, what do you think about the current environment of EVs now, given that this is an EV related podcast?
Cool. Yeah. As far as what drew me into EVs, I don't think like uh when when I explain like why am I interested in cars, I don't care about classic cars. Like I don't care at all. And like that upsets some enthusiasts, but it's like whatever, like be passionate about whatever want to be passionate about. Old stuff to me is boring. So to me, I'm always most excited by like what is happening right now? Like what are we actually doing right now? It's also fun to theorize about like what can be done, but it's also like you can only do that so much, right? Because there's so many promises out there and then things don't come to fruition. So to me, I like seeing like what exists today, what is like being sold today, or what's right around the corner that's actually going to be sold to customers. And like, of course, within the past decade, there's been a massive shift in the automotive industry as far as like so much more time dedicated towards EVs. So I'm just excited by the fact that it's new and it's different. Like the end. I think cars are awesome, and I get excited because I mean, like you mentioned, it requires a team, right? And it is every form of engineering going into one single product that I can just go buy like a ton of super smart people create something and then I can just go buy it. Like that's so cool. So yeah, it's not that there was anything special about EV versus ICE. To me, it was just like, hey, this is new. It's different. It seems to be where the industry's headed. I think that's cool. I'm excited about it. Let's learn how it all works.
Yeah, and I think that's a huge thing with when you just mentioned all the like people working together, all the parts, all the like disciplines of engineering that are involved, whether it's like electrical, mechanical design, manufacturing, industrial engineering, like all these forms of engineering. And it's like I feel like the average person just really doesn't appreciate all the work. And there's like some objectively not great cars on the road, but like even some of these cars that aren't great, it's like you still got to respect all the like time, effort, and talent that was still put in to make that like even arguably mediocre car on the road. And it's like it's just kind of humbling just to like be in the presence of that because it's like, dang, it's like
It
thousands of
is.
people were involved in
It's
this.
it's absolutely insane. Like and to your point that like people don't fully appreciate it, like they 1,000% don't. Like people will ask me sometimes like, "Hey, do you think you'll ever run out of video ideas?" And it's like, I've made 1,000 videos, which sounds like for one person to do, it's a big number. However, it's like you could dedicate your channel to like any one car component, like suspension, tire, wheel, like, and you could just focus on that forever and never run out of content. Like everything is absurdly complex and can be optimized further. So it's like, yeah, it's 100%. Like, I don't even fully appreciate it. Like, I don't know everything that goes on behind the scenes. They're so complicated. And I think that's kind of why I'm drawn to them because it's like you will never be satisfied in your curiosity.
And I guess on that note, which is if you could choose like one car component that you would really like to like dive into to learn the most about, what is most fascinating to you?
Um, I think today there's probably like three that stand out to me that are pretty exciting. Like I would say combustion engines, just because they've had such an incredible history, electric motors, because like that's where things are going, and then batteries, because batteries are just so complicated. We don't know what we're doing yet. There's so many paths they could go, and there's a lot of different things being tried. So batteries are like very exciting right now.
So, I mean, if you think about it, the like if you take a look at, you know, the traditional ICE vehicle, a ton of moving parts, a lot of people who spent their careers optimizing engine combustion and getting better fuel efficiency, more power, you know, different fuel mixes, all that sort of stuff. And then now you've got like battery powered EVs, completely different technology. But I think people are realizing not necessarily easier, it's just a different type of challenge.
Yes.
How do you see that like transition for like the industry and for like the people out there that work in the industry from your perspective?
Like, do I think it will go well for everyone or be
Yeah.
easy? Like,
Yeah.
um,
Can people transition, or does it have to like fundamentally, like, do you have to fundamentally rethink about like your vision of cars? Because you see like Rivian taking the EV approach, they're doing pretty well. It's a very fundamentally different car than like Ford, but you know Ford's with their Mach-E's, it's a pretty solid vehicle, but it's very different. You know.
yeah. I mean, I guess, um, like I will say that I never failed to be impressed by like human ingenuity. So like I feel like cool stuff will happen from all of these companies that like put in the honest effort. It's also really apparent when a company isn't willing to put in the honest effort and putting out products to be like, hey, we're doing it too. And it's like, yeah, you are technically, but like you're being crushed on every metric and your car just came out. Like that doesn't show like a real honest effort. Like you're capable of better. Like you don't have to like lie to us and pretend that, we can't tell. So I don't know. I think I will be surprised, but I've also been surprised already that like more companies haven't dissolved because like a ton are trying it, right? And things happen, mergers happen, companies get bought. But still like plenty of companies have lasted longer than I expected in that like it's not an infinite space to play. And yet a ton are trying to get into the space. And yeah, like there will only be a certain number of winners. Like I don't know what that number is, but it will be limited at some point. So a ton of money is getting dumped into it. Yeah, I don't know. It's so hard to predict, but I don't think that like just because a company was one way, they can't change. I mean, plenty of companies, the only reason they persist is if they're capable of evolving. So plenty have done it.
Yeah, and I guess on the capability of evolving, it's like you can really see that with like Hyundai and Kia, how they went from this like budget car brand with the just very like the Elantra and a few other cars I can't think of the name of, but small sedans that were just generally slow, unattractive budget cars. And now you got like the Kia EV9, which is an objectively amazing electric SUV, a little more on the expensive end, but just like the technology behind it is just like really fascinating. And
Yeah.
one of the fastest charging EVs on the road. And it's like, I think at least in terms of like adaptability, I would kind of like look more towards Korean brands like Kia, Hyundai, Genesis, all them in terms of like who's leading the chart or like leading the
Yeah,
effort in
very,
EVs,
very powerful shift.
at least for like on the basis of legacy automakers. Um,
Went to that's just reminding me, I went to the Ionic 5N launch. And I mean, that's
Oh,
a car
very
that like
cool.
it's converted like people who were like, I don't want to touch EVs to like, wow, this is actually sick. Like if you've driven it. And I think that's usually just the biggest challenge is getting someone to drive it. But while we were there, they had the Sonata N or sorry, Elantra N, and it was incredible. And it was like, I would never have thought like a manual, sporty Hyundai sedan was going to be fun. And then I drove it and I was like, genuinely, like, this car is incredible. Like, anyone who wants to put their dollar into this thing is going to be rewarded. Like, it's such a good car. And it was just like a little sideshow of like, oh, yeah, we have this thing here for some autocross. If you want to have fun with an Elantra. And it was like, oh, it was a blast. It was like, okay. And of course, the Ionic 5N is super fun.
yeah, and the Elantra end's not even that expensive. It's like,
No,
is it
it's
like
not.
32, I think, is a starting price? And
Yeah.
it's like, that's not bad at all for what you
Take it
get.
over Civic Si all day, every day.
Wow. And
That's where I have to say, like, there's been a lot of great value in vehicles more recently, you know? Like, I think that some of the car makers are starting to
That's
understand
a
what
hard
people want.
statement to make today.
Well, I think
But I'm
some are
ready to
doing it
hear you
well.
out.
Well, some I think some are doing it well, right, with like the Ionic 5N, right? And then others, we were just talking about like the new Dodge Challenger EV, and
Daytona
and
I
it
haven't
is
Charger.
driven it
kind of
yet, but I am going to.
okay. I'd love to speak with you after to hear what your thoughts are, but from
No
everything
one
that
has
I've
liked it
seen,
thus far.
from what I've seen, I've been like, I don't know. This seems like it will probably fall off the mark, you know? And it's I guess I mean you have to try and fail in order to figure out what works and what doesn't work. But like I was hoping that they would know a little bit more, you know. And then we were
And
also talking about like Tesla. As much as people hate Elon, it's actually just a good vehicle, you know. Like they just did a good
yeah,
job. So
I
sorry, go
mean,
ahead.
the thing with the Charger is like if your entire brand identity is V8s and loud noises, it's very hard to convince this thing that you have ingrained into your customer's head, like we do V8s and loud noises, V8s, loud noises, V8s, loud noises. And you just sit in this little echo chamber for years and years and years and years. And all they tell you is V8s and loud noises. Then suddenly they say, no, it's electric. And you're like, dude, what? No, like you can't blame that audience for being upset. They got rug pulled. Like what is this?
Yeah,
Absolutely. It doesn't make
that's
any sense.
interesting. And the one thing I've been tracking is like dealers are like discounting the heck out of those cars. So they like don't seem to be selling that well. And um surprisingly. And the thing is
Yeah,
like I saw like one dealership like 16,000 off MSRP. So the thing I'm waiting for is this. So I'm waiting for the day that cuz like usually Stellantis they have some kind of good lease deals every now and then. Like I'm
yes,
waiting for like later on this summer when these cars have been sitting on the lots for like 100 plus days. Can I get one for under 300 a month? Because if I can, that would be so
yeah.
cool. And it's like yeah, I know it's going to be an impractical car. It's like 206 inches long, and some of the
God.
tech may not be that great. But it's like it's a big car, but it's like I don't know.
206 inch and it's two
Yes,
doors, right?
yes. It's the thing is, it's 10 inches longer than a Lucid Air, and like I would assume probably has way less interior space,
Yeah, I
just because of
guarantee it.
like its proportions. And it's like,
Sorry, I don't
yeah,
guarantee it. I haven't looked it up, but it's probably.
yeah, and I mean, like, just it's a massive vehicle. It's probably not that efficient. And I heard that like exhaust system uses like it draws 1 kilowatt, which is crazy. Um, so I don't know, but I
Well,
think it's
I
still
tried when that came out to get an explanation out of how they do their exhaust, and they use all these fancy words, and like
Sonic.
ultimately it's probably just like speaker, but it's like, why won't you tell the story of it at least? And they were like, nope, we will not share anything other than what has been posted. It's like, okay, like that's lame. If you want enthusiasts, you need to like get into the weeds and explain things.
Yeah, and I remember at the launch, I was seeing some videos and like they didn't even have any information on the AC charge rate. They were just like, we don't know. They were like, it's probably like 11 kilowatts. And it's like, and I guess it's a thing because like when you're buying an EV, you want that like peace of mind that um, that the automakers like fully invested in EVs. And it's like, if they can't tell you what the AC charge rate is, it's like, that's kind of a red flag.
Yeah, I've heard that commonly, a common complaint actually, that when speaking with uh Dodge about that specific car, that there's just been very little knowledge given back.
I mean, it's a shame because I don't know if you're much into like car tuning, but like in my experience, like car enthusiasts also tend to be like car tuners and tweakers.
Yeah,
And you need to know about like these sort of details of the car if you're going to sell to that audience because they are going to tweak it and tune it and sort of make them. And actually, that's the thing that I'm most excited about in this EV space is like what does EV tuning and stuff look like? And I
mm-hmm,
think it's better for OEMs to lean into that and just sort of open up,
100%.
to allow people. And I think we had like the guy who led the Mach-E rally project on our podcast, and he was talking about how they did a lot of research and like they were car enthusiasts and they talked to a lot of people. I think they did it right, and I'm just surprised that more folks in the automotive industry aren't sort of taking to that, right?
Yeah, and I
And
mean,
just like
I
letting
think
it,
that's
yeah.
part of why Ioniq 5N has been received so well is that like the level of customization from the factory is insane. Like no one comes close. Like they are giving like near engineering level access to like fine tuning things just through the menu. And it's like very overwhelming if you're not a car enthusiast and you were to sit in that thing and be like, why are there 10,000 different settings? But it's like it's so impressive how like down in the weeds you can get and like adjust little things to be like, this to me is what I want. And always think choice is cool. Like, I think there should be like a higher level where it's like, if you just get in it, it just works. You hit like normal mode. But like, if you want to change things, I'm all for that. I get sad when companies, like German companies, for example, don't like one pedal driving. And I'm like, put it in the car, let people use it if they want it. Who cares? Give them the choice. That's so frustrating to me to remove that option.
Yeah, and I think that's really weird with like Porsche and well, just the whole Volkswagen group. And they're like so adamant. They're like, this is the way it should be. But
Yes.
it's like everyone who has EVs with one pedal driving options, at least I know of, who are used to them, they're like, yeah, this is an awesome feature. And it's like, and maybe even just say 20% of the people liked it. Just give them the option in case they want to do that. Cause like,
Yeah.
even in like Teslas and stuff, there's like some options that you probably wouldn't normally apply, but there's that small niche of people that would want whatever that weird option is enabled because it suits their needs better. And it's just
Yeah, I
like,
mean,
if you're
one of
good at
my
software, you should do it. And
yeah, one
maybe
of my
that's
favorite over-the-air updates on my Model 3 was one pedal driving because I got it before they had that, and I was like, "Man, I really wish it had that," and then it did, and it was like, "Wow, like, this is so sick." So, yeah, I wish that for all Porsche owners.
yeah, and kinda like because at least earlier we were discussing just like the transition to like EVs and maybe even kinda like you're scratching the surface of software-defined vehicles. And at least I see like a big kinda like waking up point in the automotive industry was when the Model 3 came out and just how much radically different it was than any other car on the market. Would you say that was kinda like a big point for, like, other automakers to start taking notice? It's like, "Okay, Tesla's designing this car, and thinking about the way vehicles are designed and how it integrates with other, pieces of software differently than
Yeah,
a traditional vehicle."
100%. I mean, the amount of levers that they can pull on after they've shipped the product is insane, and I think that's so powerful, like, I think one of the most challenging examples, um, from the Model 3's perspective, like, it's 2025. My car's a 2018, and still, auto wipers do not function. Now, there's, like, a pretty solid reason. They don't use a rain sensor, they just use cameras, right? For some reason, when you put the car in reverse, the windshield wipers go at full blast. I have always assumed they look through the rear camera and the rear camera's covered in water. And then they say, oh, they're going this direction. That camera's blocked, like full blast on the wipers. I don't know why it's actually done. It drives me crazy, but it's like, those wipers have changed so much. Even that small thing since I bought the car. Like originally, it was all done through the screen, and then there was a single button push on the left, which now they don't have stocks, but mine has the stock. So you push that button once, and you get the wiper to go once. Now you can push that wiper once. If you're on manual mode, it goes up a level. So say it starts raining more, you hit the button, it starts going a little faster. Hit it again, goes even faster until it gets to its fastest. Then you hit the button and it comes back down. Or you can use the wheel. And so it's like they've added all these controls that didn't exist 6 years after I bought the thing. So it's like that's really cool that from my perspective, they've made the wipers easier to use and like have helped kind of cover up that the auto wipers are trash.
Yeah, I agree with the auto wipers. They'll always go off, but yours sound like they're worse than mine.
Whenever I go in reverse, I'm not kidding. It's just like,
That's insane.
why?
I think it has to do with the reliance on the camera system, you know? Like
Yeah.
the what's it
But it'll
the
be
because
like off. And then
the auto headlights. I don't know if you've used the auto high beams,
I
but
don't.
those go off like crazy for me. Like every time we drive in like sort of live in like a wooded area, and they just it looks like you're flashing people all the time because they just
Yep.
go up and down. It's like
Yep.
no. It's my auto high beams are insane right now.
I got
You know.
annoyed very quickly with those. And so honestly, I haven't turned them on in since I bought the car. So maybe they're better now than when I got them, but they were terrible when I got it. And I was like, okay, I cannot rely on this at all.
And then, so you mentioned 2018 Model 3, so I was wondering, and you have the performance, right? Because you had the
Yes.
mid-range first, okay. And so with the performance, or just at least with the car itself, how has the battery been holding up? And because I'd like to kind of shift this conversation with batteries. Have
I
you
know
like
it's
done?
a great question. There's 60,000 miles on it. I haven't done the like full drain and service test. I always have thought, okay, when I sell it, I will do that just to see what it's at. And I am going to probably sell it very soon, but I don't know. But I would say when I got it, I could probably realistically do like 240 miles maybe from 100 to 0. And if I were to guess in those same conditions now, it'd probably be like real low 200s Yeah, probably around that. I don't know. I haven't noticed enough that it's really affected me, but definitely it is less than when it was new.
And that kind of
Right?
seems like the general trend, right? Like it's at least with terms of degradation, it's like I mean it happens slowly over time and it's not something that
Yeah.
because I guess when people like see like the numbers, so it'll like the warranty would be like battery goes below 70% capacity. And it's like if you just like think of that number, you're like, oh my gosh, it's gonna go down to 70 in like whatever time frame. But it's like battery degradation is a lot slower. And even in like a lot of these tests, there was one, I forgot which university did it or if it was just Department of Energy, but they were testing like Nissan Leafs that were fast
Yep.
charged in Arizona.
Yep.
And some of them were in like really hot or they were all in a hot environment, but then some were only AC charge and DC charge. And like at the end of the test, it was like a 2 to 3% difference. And that 2 to 3% difference could also maybe be um that could be explained by just like the differences in the batteries themselves
Yeah.
versus fast
Well,
charging.
the Leaf is a really good example, and I don't remember the exact numbers, but like it was really bad degradation. I want to say it was down to like 75% after like 50,000 miles. But then you have to take into consideration this is a tiny battery and it's air cooled. So it's like it
And
has
no
these
thermal
two,
conditioning.
yeah, it has these two factors working against it really bad in that, like, okay, a normal charge cycle for that Leaf is like 4 times that of a Rivian. Um, and it can't cool the battery. Like they fast charge once per day. Like they were terrible. And so they were fast charging it. And in Arizona, it's like all the worst conditions. And still it was like 75%. And so that's like the equivalent of like 200,000 miles with like a big battery. So yeah, it's like, if that's worst case, we're fine.
And so to like talk more about like your batteries and what's happening with the battery technologies now, right? We know like NMC, everyone's going to LFP, it seems. People talk about have been talking about solid state for a while. It feels like the next nuclear nuclear fusion's coming,
Yeah.
sort of thing. But maybe it's close. Um, what in your opinion is like from a practical standpoint today, are like the best battery systems out there, you know,
Okay. Well,
LFP,
here's
NMC, with thermal conditioning, all that stuff considered.
I will answer this question, but first I want to ask you all a question because I'm curious. I only just recently saw, and this is like news from literally a year ago, but I think it's Neo that has the 150 kilowatt hour semi-solid state battery. So they said it was 50% greater. So it went from 100 kilowatts to 100 kilowatt hours to 150 kilowatt hours, and it only gained 22 kilograms in weight, I believe it was. So let's just say 20 kilograms in weight. So they had this huge leap. I think they say it's LFP, which I'm like, wait, what? And then they say semi-solid state. So before I give my opinion, do y'all know if that's legit? Because I kept trying, and I don't find like any reputable North American company or automotive outlets that cover it.
I mean, stuff coming out of China, you have to take with a grain of salt, right?
Yeah.
So I think that might be overstated, in terms of like how much better it is. And from my understanding, like the semi-solid, right? It's really just a gel.
Yeah.
And yeah,
It was just frustrating because I'm like asking ChatGPT, I'm like, where's one North American source that has talked about this? And it's like, I don't know, maybe Carbuzz wrote something about another article that someone else wrote, and it was like, this is not, no one, no real like outlet has like, sorry, not to, anyways,
no, yeah.
no one has like actually covered this in any sort of detail. So I'm like, maybe they have this golden answer right now, but I don't know.
This
There's no
might
access to information about it.
I'm actually serious. This site might be a really interesting thing to cover. I would be interested in writing that. Maybe I'll have to like reach out to some
Yeah,
I have a few
do the
contacts
work.
at Stanford
Okay.
battery and maybe I could talk with them just to like get a better understanding. But yeah, no, it's really
They
weird. And with these Chinese EVs, it's like I guess every like I've never experienced like a Chinese EV before besides like a
Yeah.
Polestar, but that doesn't really count. Just because it's not, it's like
Yeah,
pretty
they've got a
average
big
specs.
push. Like they're giving access to anybody who wants it. I just haven't taken the time to do it yet.
Mm. And it's like I would love to just experience some Chinese EVs just to like get a feel of, like software, all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, there's some like crazy claims and like some of these insane EVs coming out of them, like this is the BYD Yangwang U8, and it's like that plug-in hybrid SUV that can like drive through water for like 30 minutes. And it's
Where
like,
this remind you, and I can put you in touch, and you can drive all of these because they're all in North America, and they're just sitting there waiting
really,
for people to drive them. Yeah,
that's insane. Okay, let's talk after
I
the
just haven't
episode.
done it because I'm lazy.
Cool.
But going back to your question on
Yeah, real question.
batteries, I mean, I think like cost matters a lot. And we hear a lot about like, oh, costs are going to keep coming down, keep coming down. Then like lithium ion batteries relative to 20 years ago, like it is insane how much they've dropped in price. However, like cars are still super expensive and entry price is still like a serious barrier to EVs. So on that, like LFP just seems like a super logical transition. And you know, maybe it's not for everything. Like high dollar cars like Taycan still going NMC makes sense when you're paying for something premium, you want faster charging, you want ultimately more capacity, and you know, you're probably not driving 200,000 miles on that car over its lifetime, like you as the original buyer. So you might not care that much about a little degradation. Um, so I think LFP seems really logical with all the like solid state chat. Again, going back to like kind of what I was saying earlier is like I get more excited about what actually exists or is about to actually exist and is sold to customers. Like if I can go purchase something, then I think that's exciting because it's real. And until it enters that phase, you know, it's just some dude in a lab being like, "Hey, look at these crazy numbers," and it's like, "All right, scale it." Uh, yeah. So I don't like to speculate too far ahead because it's very difficult to say.
Yeah, and especially too when they share something that sounds like pretty crazy, and then there's like no like peer-reviewed journal or anything to back it up. It's like because like I could literally like make a press release right now
Yeah.
as some whatever company saying that we got a battery that can charge 500 miles in 3 minutes or something. Just make some crazy claim like that,
Yeah.
and literally nothing to back it up, and I could just send it out to tons of media outlets, and they'd probably go with it. And like we saw that even with like going back to like Fisker back in 2018, their CEO made crazy claims about this like new solid state technology that would charge, I believe his claim was 500 miles in like the ballpark of like a minute. And it's just like you can make these crazy claims and there's
It
people
worked
and
out, huh?
yeah. And these investors like in these groups who like don't aren't that attuned to like this just like knowing like basic like physics because just like if you do the math on how much energy you'd need a lot of heat
Yeah.
and it's like
Yeah.
people just kind of roll with it and it's like you can kind of just go with anything nowadays and people there's a group of people that'll probably believe it.
That's why when I saw this like Neo battery, I'm like, this sounds incredible. Why is no one talking about it? And I'm like, I guess it's just not because no one's talking about it. But it's like this is a year old. Like this has been out for a year and none of us care. Like what? Like it supposedly does exist. So I'm like, all right, I don't know. That needs to be one of your stories.
All right, that will be.
We'll
And
have to we'll have
I
to research it in deep, for
Yes,
sure.
there's like two sentences out there in American media, so
interesting. Well, I'll
there's a lot to
maybe
work with.
maybe I could double that. Um,
Yeah,
But I think another interesting thing is with LFP versus regular battery, or sorry, like NMC or NCA batteries, is the voltage curves. And I think that's really interesting. And a lot of people just like kind of explaining this to is like in an LFP battery, it's like you actually need to charge to 100% like
yeah.
every now and then just to like just for the battery to understand like, okay, we're at 100% now the BMS can be fully like adjusted to understanding that it's at 100 versus because the voltage curve's relatively flat, they're like 20 to 80% in the cells and that's really interesting. So could you kind of
Yeah, and
like break that down a little bit?
they don't tend oh, sure, they don't tend to, um, pair like, they tend to have longer cycle lives, and it's, like, hard to say that definitively because, like, you can pick any one variable and change it, and then suddenly that's not true anymore, but, like, oh, like on average, if you look at today's batteries, like an LFP will have more cycle life. And as a result, you can charge it to 100% and not care because it's like, okay, if it takes 300,000 miles till I see meaningful, like huge amounts of degradation, then like, who cares? Um, yeah, people talk a lot about reliability, but it's like reliability only matters for like a certain duration. After that, it's just like wasted money. So, uh, but yeah, as far as the voltage curves, like it's very common practice with most most of the our introduction to electric car batteries, whether that was NCA or NMC or different chemistries out there, most of them have this like well-defined curve that increases. And so if at any point you, let's say your battery's at 70%, well, there's a direct correlation with voltage, and you can see, okay, my voltage is 3.7 or 3.5 or whatever it is, and I can at the cellular level. And because I know that, I know my entire battery pack is at about 70%. And so it's like a very clear demonstration. But like you're saying with NMC, if it's 20 to 80%, if it's just saying 3.2 volts or whatever the number is uh, at the cell level, then it's like, okay, I have no idea. And so they do completely different math. You're like basically monitoring the current and seeing, okay, if we're applying this much current for this duration, we've used approximately this much energy, and that means our battery has about this much left. But as you keep doing that a bunch of times, suddenly it's like, well, you're guessing a little bit every time. Like you're guessing a little bit. And so that little bit adds up to a lot, and then you can have everything fall out of balance, and then you have a big problem. So eventually you want to get it to where that voltage goes back up to its peak. You know what that peak number is that you want to charge all these cells to. You get there, you're at 100% confidently.
Interesting. It would be really cool to look at like something like the Hertz Reynolds, because they had a lot of LFP Model 3s in their fleets. And because like maybe these cars maybe never got charged 100% for whatever reason. Maybe people were driving them, they were sitting on the lot, maybe charged up to like 95%, and then someone got his rental. So it would be really interesting to see like what those discrepancies would look like in real world conditions. So
Yeah.
I don't
I
know.
mean, I think, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if there are, it's a good question. Like, are there examples out there of like batteries that have been permanently ruined simply because they sat too long, or, you just charge them back and they're fine? Certainly there are statements like in owner's manuals, like, hey, don't do this. And it's like for your own benefit, just you should know what your range is so you don't get stranded. But it is interesting.
Yeah, for sure. And one other fuel type or propulsion system that I think we should discuss before we wrap up this episode is hydrogen. And so there's like whenever I talk with people who like don't aren't really familiar with like EVs, they're always like kind
That's
of like
the
point to
solution.
hydrogen.
Let's go
Yes.
hydrogen. Yes, yes, that's
Hydrogen. And
it's
it
got
like
it's
it
got good
makes sense.
marketing.
Right? It's like it's technically carbon neutral, and it's like all this stuff, and it's like, okay, that's cool. But yeah, when you actually like do the math like you've done, and even like I've done some like price comparisons in like California, like
It's
Model
gotten
3.
so expensive lately. Like now it's even worse than when it was being hyped. And it's like now the prices are just insane.
Yeah, and so
Um,
this is actually like a side note because I know we kind of want to talk more about like the engineering, but like the like just financials. So there's people who will like buy hydrogen cars in California, and Toyota, like certified pre-owned models, you can buy them for like 10, $12,000. They'll literally have to give you a $15,000 fuel voucher, and it's a duration of 3 years where you get free
yeah.
fuel just to sell these cars for like 10 grand because no one wants them.
I
And
just Googled it. And according to S&P Global, January 2023, oh, this is January 23. I think it has gone down, but it says, oh, October 2024, $35 per kilogram.
kilogram.
That is the equivalent of $35 a gallon for gas.
And you need
This
5
is
kilograms in the
stupid.
Mirai, right? Isn't that 5 kilogram tank, I think?
Yeah, something like that.
So that's
But you get about 1 gallon of gas worth of energy out of 1 kilogram of hydrogen. You can go further because it's more efficient, but it's like paying, yeah, it's like paying 30 some dollars a gallon, which is crazy because
Ridiculous.
even when the number was $10 a kilogram, like it doesn't work in your favor. And then when you start thinking about synthetic fuels, which are all based on starting with hydrogen, yeah, it's like if you're starting at $10, you're going to get this gallon of gas, synthetic gas, at like $40. If you're starting at $35, what is it, $100 a gallon to like fuel your synthetic carbon free car? Or you could just like buy an electric car and charge the entire thing for $7. Yeah, like
Yeah.
the math financially right now is stupid in EV's favor.
Yeah, because
But
like even
anyways,
in
that wasn't your
Calif
question.
yeah, but like even in like San Francisco Bay, it's like electricity's a lot more money there, but it's like 25 cents a kilowatt hour is like miles better than paying $35 a kilogram of hydrogen, and you need 5 kilograms to go like 300-ish miles. So
Yeah,
like,
yeah, it's not good.
yeah, pretty sad. But yeah, I think looking at hydrogen, so like people talk about hydrogen combustion as opposed to fuel cells. And
Yeah.
you've like shown that like so I guess if we just want like an idea like a 300-mile range hydrogen car, we would need like the majority of that vehicle space would have to be a hydrogen storage reserve. Is that correct?
Yeah, so if you think about like people get excited because hydrogen allows for combustion and because it doesn't weigh very much. And so people are like, "Oh, it's very energy dense," right? Because it doesn't weigh very much. But like density is measured in multiple ways. One way is like by mass, one way is like by volume. And by volume, it's terrible. So it's between like 6 and 7 times for 1 kilogram of hydrogen, which is the energy equivalent of 1 gallon of gasoline, though again, the vehicles tend to be more efficient. But if we're talking about combustion, suddenly we're back at the same efficiency. Okay, so now we have 1 kilogram of hydrogen equal to 1 gallon of gas, and we need about 6 to 7 times the space to have the equivalent amount of fuel because 1 kilogram of hydrogen takes up 6 to 7 gallons of space. In it's compressed at 700 bars to 10,000 psi, which is like the standard for cars these days. Okay, so you need a fuel tank that's 6 to 7 times the size to match. Well, take any car today and try to make its fuel tank 7 times bigger. Also, it has to be a very specific cylindrical shape. It can't just be this whatever works within the body of the car. It has to be this cylinder. So suddenly it takes up even way more space than just 7 times that volume. And it's this huge object. So if you look at cars like the Mirai, like terrible trunk space, I haven't looked at a modern one, but I drove one of the first gens. Trunk space is awful. I would imagine the new one's also not that great. And that's with a fuel cell. So that's doubling its range. So if you use a combustion engine, you now need twice the storage that that fuel cell has in order for it to go the same distance. So again, it just like everything falls out of control. And if you look at, for example, Toyota did some great advertising with the GR Corolla or GR Yaris that was, I think it was GR Corolla, that was powered by hydrogen. But, and they did it at the race, like Fuji race, all kinds of problems with it. But one of the things that was not visible to most people looking at the car is like they did not have any rear view. Like if you were sitting in the driver's seat and you look behind you, it was tanks to the ceiling. The entire back of the car was all fuel tanks so they could have enough hydrogen for this thing to run like not that many minutes, like a little while. And then it runs out of fuel very quickly. And that's with the whole car, no back seat. Like everything is just full of hydrogen tanks. So it's like, yeah, it's just not realistic. There is not enough space in a car for you to run hydrogen combustion unless
Maybe like
you
a
just
trailer
like,
we could think of. Maybe that
yeah,
could be
if you have a trailer, but then like the whole idea that like why people want combustion to live
Yeah.
is like, oh, it's sporty, it's fun, blah blah blah. It's like you lose all of that because the thing's going to be enormous, and that just defeats the purpose of a sports car.
Yeah, that's not painting a great picture for hydrogen right now. So, I mean, what do you maybe if
It
we
never really made sense, right? I mean, it's just such a hard gas to work with. The infrastructure
Yes.
just isn't there. Like it's a tiny molecule. Like it leaks
Tanks,
and
the
hydrogen
tanks
leaks.
leak.
Yeah.
So
And it's
the
scary.
tanks have a rating and they're allowed to leak a certain amount over time. Now, most of the time, like it's not really that big of a number, but it is a number, right? And so like if you have an enclosed space that you are then allowing that hydrogen to escape out into, and then it's starting to, sit around in this enclosed space. At 4% hydrogen, that's now flammable. So you don't want hydrogen to collect in a space, say your garage, you park your hydrogen car, right? Like BMW had the liquid hydrogen, hydrogen 7. It was a 12 series V12 engine with liquid hydrogen fuel tank. They said you cannot park this in your garage because it leaks hydrogen. Now you can use a catalyst and you can turn that hydrogen into water. There are solutions, but tanks leak, and it's a real problem that you like don't have to think about with,
And that BMW
EVs or
7
gas
Series,
cars.
it had like a like vent on the roof, right? For like flames to come out of.
Not flames, to
Okay.
release pressure. So
Okay.
there was a catalyst though in the back of it though. So if there is, at a controlled rate, it can release through this catalyst and then it just comes out as water. Like say there's some reason they need to dump that pressure really quickly, they had like a higher pressure ventilation system, and yeah, it would just be shooting hydrogen. So if something were to for some reason ignite it, yes, it would be a flamethrower. But yeah, you're assuming, I guess, in that case that it's not.
Yeah, that's insane. But I mean, just thinking about all these constraints with hydrogen, and then we look at like, oh, the Chevy Equinox EV, over 300 miles of range. You can buy it for $35,000. You can get it for 27.5 with tax credit, or you could get a Prius, which gets about 60 miles per gallon, and that's 30,000. And it's like these are pretty affordable cars that are great in their own respects, and
Yeah.
you don't need to deal
So
with those.
there is a solution for enthusiasts. Um, the thing is, it's like ironic in that, uh, car enthusiasts will say, "Hey, the grid cannot handle electric cars." But the only thing that could possibly save combustion engines long term would be a grid with unlimited energy. Because if you have unlimited energy, then you can turn hydrogen into a synthetic fuel, and you can create a very similar to gasoline like substance at a high price. But again, if you have unlimited energy, then you don't have to care so much about cost. So if we have a ton of energy, we can make synthetic fuel. It will be cost prohibitive for the near future because it's so much energy. It's so inefficient. But that is like the holy grail is like you just need a ton of energy, a ton of it, and
Yeah.
then you can be wasteful.
Like if we all of a sudden had a bunch of nuclear fusion plants that like lowered the cost
Yeah,
of
we're like,
energy.
what do we do? What are we gonna do with all this energy instead of just like using Chat GPT prompts to like
Yeah.
put ourselves back
I
from
mean
any
that's
benefit the electric
that
car has ever caused?
that's been my biggest comeback to a lot of people who are like, oh, the grid can't handle all these EVs. If anything's stressing the grid right now, it's all the AI,
Oh,
all
yeah.
the chat
Well,
GPT
it's
prompts.
it's funny because the chat has been like, "Oh, we can't handle 30% more energy load if everyone were to go to an EV," which is about what it would be. But we're already asking for double the energy load to make AI what we think it can be, and it's like, okay, suddenly it's fine now. All right, cool.
Wow. And as we wrap up this conversation, I think
Is it optimistically ending?
we need to end on some optimistic note. I'm
Okay,
trying to
great.
think. So, what is
There's gotta be good news out there somewhere.
yes, there has to be. Okay, so you're selling your Tesla Model 3. Any
That's
interesting
great
cars?
news.
Any or like what car would you be looking at? Or like in your
Yeah,
garage?
what are
Is
you
there any
thinking about
like
as your next one?
yeah.
Yeah.
To replace it right now, and I'm not certain, but I'd say it's between Taycan and Lucid. I like Lucid more because it has one pedal. I mean, honestly, I think like Lucid is probably the best engineered car for sale today, but the Porsche is insanely fun. But I hate to go back and not have one pedal driving, so that makes me lean a lot. But honestly, I haven't made up my mind, so I don't know. But I like both of those a lot, and used prices are pretty solid.
Yeah, especially like the Taycans. And I mean even Lucids are coming down. But I've seen some Taycans in like the mid 40s now, which is like and I guess the second that the Audi e-tron GT, because
Yeah,
same
yeah.
basic
Those have
platform,
also come down a lot.
and those are in the mid 40s, and those come as all-wheel drive as standard, and you get the bigger battery. So something to consider. But yeah, I think either of those cars would be pretty sweet. I guess I'm a little biased towards the Lucid, but I think
I mean, I think the Lucids are awesome. Like they're underappreciated in today's market for how incredible they are.
yeah, for sure. And all right. Well, Jason, it was a pleasure having you on. I think we had a great conversation. And till next week's episode, thank you very much.
Awesome. Really appreciate you having me. Thanks so much. Take care.
Thanks. It was fun. Yeah.